This is Pastor's Perspective. We're here every Monday through Friday providing answers on a variety of topics, including the Bible, end times, other religions, and the family. And now here's today's host, Brian Perez.
Hey there. Thanks so much for listening and for watching the Pastor's Perspective program. We're here every weekday afternoon between 3 and 4 p.m. Pacific time. We're usually live, but the program you're listening to right now on the radio is not live. It was recorded on Thursday afternoon/evening, May 18th. March 18th, I'm sorry. But we're here. We've got some calls on the board that we're going to get to. And let's have a good time. Here in the studio with me today, Pastor Brian Brodersen from Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa in Southern California, and author and apologist Dr. Bobby Conway from the 1 Minute Apologist channel on YouTube. How you guys doing?
Good.
Good answer.
Yep.
Great.
Oh,
Yes.
better answer.
I'm doing
Fantastic.
great.
Ah.
You know, in that other program, somebody referred to Bobby as, he starts off with that logic and then, that passion.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a term that used to be applied to Martin Lloyd-Jones as a preacher. And they would say that as he preached, it was like logic on fire. So you, my friend, are logic on fire.
I wish I was logic on fire. Well, hey, and one of the things sometimes too, I used to feel some pressures because my personality is more charismatic. I'm an introvert, but my personality is more charismatic. And but the problem is people can very much read where I'm at. And I don't always like that because if I'm in a bad mood, people are like, you can totally read where I'm at. And so some Sundays I would be preaching and people be like, oh, where's your passion? And I was just kind of more chill and subdued. And then other times I might be real charismatic and people would be like, oh man, he must be really on fire for the Lord. And I'm thinking, I'm actually having a hard week. And so all that to say, don't ever let anybody's charisma or lack of charisma trick you, because the truth of the matter is where our passion is really found is in our convictions. That's where our passion is found, is in our convictions. Mm-hmm. And I've seen a lot of people, they're very quiet, but they have such strong Christian convictions, and they're passionate for Christ, but they might not exude it like somebody that is real charismatic in their personality. I mean, I was the kid when I was always get my friends excited about things like, oh my goodness, this is great. We're going to come over and watch a movie tonight and we can have some ice cream. And like, I'm actually really toned down compared to I was a zealot when I was younger. So
Wow.
All that to say, personalities are different. Our conviction is where our passion lies. And I do believe that I love Jesus, but I want to love him more. For sure. For sure. But thank you, Brian.
You're welcome. And we believe you love Jesus too, or you wouldn't be sitting in that chair.
Good point.
Yes.
All right.
I'm joking. I just had to make it, a lighter moment. It was getting a little too
heavy,
a little fuzzy there.
But I will say to Brian Brodersen, seriously, now that we're kind of getting sloppy with one another, like you are genuinely one of my heroes of the faith. I mean, I'm serious. It is an honor for me to sit at this table with you. I sit here and I serve at your privilege, and just our story and how God connected me to your heart many years ago, and the fact that we get to do this together, and just I've been around so many pastors and been in ministry for so long, and your genuineness just means so much to me. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Brian's about as real as they get.
So, Brian Perez, what do you think about me? I mean,
Well, I thought we should probably just give a little praise to Brian Perez.
No,
exactly.
It's kind of a love fest, kind of a romance with me and Bobby. But Brian, you're like the guy said, your jokes. I mean, your sense of humor,
your voice.
It's all it's a tremendous package.
That's right. Your
Bobby
humility.
and I, we just sit here. We're like, we are with a guy who's like a legend in radio.
That's
And
right.
he makes us feel so welcome. He doesn't
Yes.
look down on us, even though we're just such amateurs.
Hair like Sammy Hagar.
Hey, you got to be careful with the hair comments.
That's right.
Brian and I learned the other day in a seminar that you got to watch what you say about people's hair.
That's right. That's
So,
right.
Right?
That's right. That's right. I've got HR on my speed dial. Now, so you don't want me to go there. All right. Good start to the program, I'd say. Let's get to some Bible
That's right.
questions. Here's one that was sent in by Rosemary in California. At one time, the Catholic Church was against cremation. They've since accepted it. My question is, biblically, is cremation wrong? Now, we've got on the board a Mary in Hemet who kind of has the same question. So, Mary, are you the Rosemary that sent us this question on Facebook?
No.
Okay, well, we're still going to answer two people at the same
Yeah,
time.
how about
so,
that?
hi there, Mary. Welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you. I was just wondering about cremation because when people get cremated, people have their remains spread all over, wherever they wanted to have their remains spread. But does God? I mean, is that because is it of God? And how is it that when you're buried, you can come and see your parent or your brother, or whatever, and show your respect? But when you're cremated, you see them no more, because their body is spread all over. And is that of God?
Okay. Bobby, what would you say to that?
Biblically, as it relates to cremation, we really don't see it there. There is burial that's practiced by the Jewish people. There is some debate about whether or not cremation is acceptable. For example, a teacher that I studied under, Norman Geisler, wrote a book on this whole idea, and he was adamantly opposed to cremation. I do think that if we're going to practice, memorializing our loved ones, if we wanted to be is in line with what we see in Scripture, then burial be the case. But we need to remember, that there are certain cultures whereby you don't have the option of burial. Maybe like places in Japan or elsewhere where, they don't have the space to be able to have all the cemeteries for burial to take place. So they exercise cremation. And so, excuse me, what happens to the body when it's buried? I mean, it becomes dust again. What happens with cremation? It just accelerates that process. So that's not going to be a problem for the Lord to give us our glorified body from a cremated state or from a burial state that decomposes over time, for that matter. So all that to say, me personally, I don't think that there's a problem with either option. I think that sometimes people are just financially really strapped and they lose a loved one, and cremation might be the process that they go with. I don't think that they're forfeiting anything on the Scripture there. Now, as far as the viewing, that's kind of an interesting thing anyway. I mean, some people don't want to see a deceased loved one. Other people need to see it, and that just kind of depends upon one's grieving process. And I suppose that you could have a viewing and then still do cremation, and that's another option that can happen. So
I think, too, what Mary was saying is you can't go visit the burial plot when you do cremation. But I guess you can go visit, like if it's the ocean or something, you can go visit that place.
Yeah, I think that it's important just to note, and Bobby, you said it, but just, that the Scripture doesn't say specifically. And you don't, you have zero instruction on it. I can't think of any instruction on it, right? I mean, we have examples of people being buried. Of course, Jesus was put in a tomb, and Lazarus was put in a tomb. The bodies of Saul and Jonathan were burned, though. They were cremated. Their bodies were after they were slain in the battle. But, like you said, Bobby, Dr. Geisler was very, very he was so convinced about it, he wrote a book on it. And I think that that's just a case of somebody who's passionate about something, but he doesn't have necessarily a real strong biblical foundation for it. He might argue it from a number of different angles, church history. This is what the Christians have thought historically about the body and the sanctity of the body and all of that sort of stuff. Okay, that's all fine, but the Bible doesn't specifically say. And I think for the very reasons that you mentioned. In some places you can't do it. So what are people going to walk around their whole life feeling condemned because we didn't have a burial spot, we had to burn their body, but now we know that that was wrong and God doesn't accept that. So I think the Lord just did everybody a favor by not addressing it in the scriptures.
Yeah. Mary, hope that helps you. Thanks for calling today.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right. God bless you. Now, the question that we got on Facebook from Rosemary. So the Catholic Church was once against cremation and they've changed their mind?
I guess so. I never.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably true. Of course, there were many Catholic churches either had a cemetery directly connected, or there was in a community there was a cemetery that was owned by the Catholic Church. So it was part of. You're buried in a Catholic seminary. I mean, that was an important part of it too.
Cemetery.
Did I say seminary?
No comment.
Well, that
Wow, that was a Freudian slip there, wasn't it? You buried in a Catholic seminary. That's hilarious. I'm cracking myself up there. So I wouldn't be surprised if they changed their mind.
Yeah.
And, they should have changed their minds. So good. Yeah.
All right. Mary, thank you for calling us from Hemet. And we've got another Hemetian, I guess what you would say, on the phone. Sarah, welcome to Pastor's Perspective.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
You bet.
So I had a Christian friend recently basically tell me that, it wasn't right to be doing yoga as a Christian.
Okay.
So I'm just curious. I mean, also, I think it's good to note that while I'm practicing yoga, I'm not, because I know some of the terms and names of the poses are Hindu-based, but I'm not practicing it in that way. I just simply enjoy the exercise, but I'm curious what you guys think.
Okay. Bobby, is it okay for Christians to practice yoga?
Well, this is a question that does come up from time to time. I think that as it relates to some of the stretching and stuff, there's obviously not going to be an issue with that. But technically, the goal is to unite one's temporary self with the infinite Brahman, and so, which is the Hindu concept of God. So if somebody is engaged in that, I mean, yoga means union, okay? And we're trying to make a union with our temporary transitory self and make this union with Brahman, which is a concept of a Hindu god. And if we're trying to make that connection, then that's obviously very problematic. And it'll focus on different things like breathing mechanisms, certain postures, meditation. In and of itself, stretching, breathing, meditation, there's nothing wrong with that. But if somebody is in a yoga class and people are really trying to push forth an Eastern philosophy and we're just sitting in there ignoring it while that's being invited in, we have to really be honest with ourselves, like, hey, can I stretch in another way? Can I breathe in another environment? Do I have to be in this place that is really opening itself up to this philosophy known as Hinduism?
Yeah. So, Sarah, do you go to a studio to do this, or are you doing it at home? How are you doing it?
Yeah, I would just do it at home. I would just look up YouTube videos and do different yoga, from there. But I haven't been doing it in a studio at all.
Some people have a hard time with the whole concept of, it feels more self-focused, like, okay, I'm focusing on my breathing versus focusing on God. So it's a meditation of emptying your mind versus what Christian meditation would be, kind of like filling your mind, filling your heart. And I understand that statement, but there are moments for me where I have, where when I have struggled and Christians say, oh, you just need to focus on the word. You just need to focus on the word. And I was thinking, I just genuinely don't want to, my brain is ADD, I'm anxious and just constantly having to think. I'm just wanting to relax myself and not do some theologizing in the moment and focusing on my breathing, like take a deep breath and exhale. That doesn't have to be carnal. I mean, I can remember even back before I was a Christian and playing sports, and just taking a deep breath, and just thinking about like relaxing that way. I think that's okay. I mean, just to focus that you're just looking at your body, but some people make you feel so carnal, like, oh my goodness, you're not thinking about the word, you're taking a deep breath, and you think that you've done something so wrong.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want to add something, Brian?
Brian's been meditating over here off to the side doing some yoga. So
I'm trying to get my breathing sorted out here, but
you're stuck in the pretzel position, so we gotta.
I would just reiterate everything Bobby said, but I think too that my wife does yoga, so I could just speak for my experiences with her. She's on her yoga mat. The last thing she's trying to do is connect with Brahman.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So I think, we do have to make those distinctions, I think, because, we're talking about breathing exercises, we're talking about stretching. These are all things that the human body can do, and God made the human body. Yes, people in different cultures with different religions, they use these things for different purposes. We're not using it for that. So, people that say, well, then you shouldn't call it yoga. It's, yoga is just a convenient term to describe what you're doing. Now, like Bobby said, there are places where you can go, you're going to get the full Hindu experience. They're gonna take you into, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to have a union with this God. Obviously, we don't want to go anywhere near anything like that. But just the going through the physical acts, I think there's zero problem with that.
Yep. What do you think, Sarah?
Okay. That sounds great. Thank you so much. You just reaffirmed what I felt in my heart. So that's perfect.
Good.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling us from Hemet today on Pastor's Perspective. Brian Perez here with Pastor Brian Brodersen from Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa in Southern California. Author and apologist Dr. Bobby Conway from the 1 Minute Apologist channel on YouTube is here as well. He's here with us in the studio, but on tomorrow's program, he'll be in North Carolina again on the Bobby Cam, getting ready to fly out.
Yeah, I will. I'll be flying out.
In fact, you've already flown out.
I've already flown out. Yeah, that's right.
It already happened.
It's happened.
Yes.
By the way, on that whole yoga thing, just to say, I know that my wife as well enjoys doing yoga, and it's not because she's trying to connect with Brahmins. So I think that Brian bringing up Cheryl, let me go ahead and bring up my wife Heather as well, and it has nothing to do with that. So
With Brahman.
yeah.
All right. Marla, we're going to go to you next on Pastor's Perspective. Hello.
Hi. Thank you, pastors. God bless you all. Yeah, my question is, on social media, I don't do anything anymore. I just make greetings like birthdays and anniversary, and mostly I do spiritual, not spiritual, but mostly what do you call that? Do scriptures, a lot of scriptures.
So are you a happier person now because you're not on social media as much?
Definitely. like toxic. Yeah, I got rid of toxins. So, but anyway, I no, it's just my opinion. It's just me. So anyway, with that, my friends and those people that I have connected before, they think I'm religious. So they keep sending me, everything about the Pope, everything about Catholic prayers, and it's all Pope. So what should I do? Should I ignore it? Should I say something? Should I say that I used to be a Catholic and now I've found the Lord in the right way?
So they're sending you positive things about the Pope, and they're sending you Catholic prayers.
Just prayers.
Okay.
For dead people, and then post visit and all kinds of prayers. Like Catholic and. The second question, if you can answer, it's fine. It's for Bobby. And I have heard a lot of mental health something in his website, and I don't really understand what it is and how does it help and what is that all about. Thanks.
Okay, well, I'll stay on the line, though. Brian, take the Catholic question first.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate your humor.
Oh.
Yeah, so just clarify for me, are these family members or friends who sending you these
Family
things?
and friends. Those that
Family and
are,
friends.
yeah.
Okay.
I do not have any born-again Christian, family and friends. Not at all. They're all Catholic and send me all Catholic
Right.
images.
Got it. Okay. You could take it as an opportunity to say, well, thank you, but, this is what I've learned about prayer. I've learned that we pray directly to Jesus. We pray, we don't need to have saints interceding for us. We don't need to have Mary interceding for us. The Bible says that there's one mediator between God and people, and that mediator is Jesus Christ. So, you might take it as an opportunity just to start educating them a little bit about what prayer is and things like this. Now, with things regarding the Pope, I mean, if it's a quote from the Pope or, something, if they're pointing you to something he said about something, it all depends.
Yeah.
I mean, he, sometimes he says stuff that's good, and you're like, okay, yeah, I can agree with that. That's biblical.
Awesome.
Other times he might say stuff, and you're like, well, no, and then you take the opportunity. Well, let me just tell you a little bit about what I've learned in the Bible. I think if you approach it by just sort of pointing them back to the Bible, not in a finger pointing way, but just say, hey, I'm learning these things as I'm reading the Bible. This could open a door for them to become curious and, well, I want to read the Bible, or what does the Bible say about this or that? That might be an approach that I would take.
And Bobby, the mental health crash course that you have on your website, maybe that's what Marla's inquiring about, or what is it specifically, Marla, that you want to know?
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing, I could get from it when he says that. So I have a relative who has mental health issue, and is there something I could learn from him? Because I go to Pastor Rick Warren. He has this, mental issue because of his son, dying and have a mental health. Yeah. Well, I mean, with Bobby, what is it about mental health that he can help or something?
Yeah, my heartbeat in putting a mental health crash course together is, I think that there's a lot of people that suffer from anxiety and depression and obsessive compulsive disorders and schizophrenia and bipolar. There are a lot of mental health issues out there. And what the church has often done is approached the solution to dealing with some of that on simply saying, okay, that's sin, depression, anxiety, worry, OCD, whatever that is, this is sin. Or it's spiritual warfare. And while I agree that we have to look at sin as an option and spiritual warfare as an option, I also think with the emergence of neuroscience and some of the things that we're learning about the brain is I think that there's a lot of things that contribute to our mental health. Traumas. Did you know that if we don't process our traumas, literally we can become physically unhealthy, because trauma stays trapped in our body. And so we have to process those traumas. The amygdala gets hijacked, and people end up in marriage, and they don't realize that, man, it's like we're like hamsters on a wheel, and we just get in these same arguments over and over and over again. And the reality is there's a lot of hope and there's a lot of freedom to show us a new way out, but they have traumas and they don't know how to respond differently. It's like you get in an argument the same way 1,000 times, and it's because there's a way forward. And so I'd say our brains, when I was younger, we used to have those commercials like, this is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. And we used to think like you couldn't rehabilitate the brain. And now what we're learning is like you can actually, neuroplasticity, you can reroute your brain and you can retrain your brain how to think about things. And so a lot of times these people with anxiety and depression and traumas and OCD tendencies, they are just They just need to learn how to understand their human brain. Some people, they don't get enough dopamine and enough serotonin. So there's all kinds of things that are going on. It's not as simple as we often make it in the church. We get very reductionistic in the church. So the mental health crash course is to just say, hey, let's get rid of the stigma around mental health issues, and let's get people in small groups discussing these types of issues.
Yeah. What do you think, Marla?
And where do you get the small groups from your website? And how do I get the small groups?
Well, I haven't been to the website in a long time myself to look at that, but it should be that if you get the course, that it comes with the small group material. I know I put together a bunch of questions that people might have about taking the course. How long is it? What is the purpose of it? And so there should be a frequently asked questions section at the website, as well as the small group questions that you could go through. So it's designed for small groups or just even for individuals to take it. And what we're doing there is just offering a process of healing for people to consider and go on together. So.
Now, Marla, are you asking about the small groups? Like, is there information about a group in your area? Or because I think maybe what you guys are...
In the website or in a Zoom or something like that, just to...
I think it's more
get into that.
Right. Isn't it something more where maybe Marla can start her own small group, or do you have a way for small groups to connect on your website?
Yeah, I mean, you could get the course and then just invite people to your home, and then you could watch the course. Like I'm going to do that starting this Sunday night with some men in our church, and we're just going to take them through the mental health crash course, and we're going to watch an episode, and they're like 15 minutes, and then I've got the discussion questions. So everybody doesn't have to purchase it, but they can if you want them to pre-watch it, and then you can just come together and discuss the questions.
Brian, did you want to add anything?
No.
Okay. Marla, thank you for your phone call today on Pastor's Perspective.
Not to Marla, because I think, Bobby answered that fine. I was just going to say, though, Bobby, you sort of alluded to it, but two things. Number one, there has been obviously a stigma. There had been. I think it's kind of going away.
I think so too.
In the culture regarding mental illness, but there's also a very strong stigma in the church regarding mental illness, and this is so unhelpful because the church is a place where people should come to get help, and if they come needing help, and we're like, well, you don't really have mental illness. You just need, here, let me pray for you. There's no such thing as mental illness, which I have heard those things repeated over and over again over the years. And, man, you can really, really, you can prevent people from ever being able to get whole. And you can seriously damage people by that. So a lot of times people, say, for example, a person who needs medication because they have a mental disorder, like a schizophrenic person or a person who has a bipolar situation, they almost always need medication to maintain, to not be psychotic, to live some sort of normal life. But they come to a church, leader or even maybe just a Christian and tell them, I've got this mental illness, I take this medication. Oh, you shouldn't be on that medication. You need to just trust God. You need to just believe. You need to have faith. And they, okay. So they go off their meds, and then, a month and a half later, they're walking down the street naked or something, and it's like I've seen this happen over and over and over again.
Or they take their life. Or...
Yeah, they take their worst case scenario. Yeah, they take their life. So, thank God that there's, we've come to a place now where we're thinking more realistically about this stuff.
Yeah, and you can find out more about Bobby's mental health crash course on his website, oneminuteapologist.com/MHCC. I'll find out.
Pastor's Perspective continues in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Pastor's Perspective continues. And now, here's today's host, Brian Perez.
Hey there, welcome back. This is Pastor's Perspective. I'm Brian Perez, as you just heard. And in the studio today, Pastor Brian Brodersen from Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa in Southern California. Also author and apologist, Dr. Bobby Conway from the 1 Minute Apologist channel on YouTube. Check out his website, oneminuteapologist.com. And yes, I was right. The link to get more information about Bobby's mental health crash course, his MHCC, is 1minuteapologist.com/MHCC. So check that out. All right, let's get some more phone calls. Yeah, guys, we'll begin with, got lots of good ones here. Monica in California, welcome to Pastor's Perspective. Hi there.
Hello. Hi, sorry.
Sorry, for what?
No, it's getting on my first job, going on my way to my second.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. You're a busy lady.
I'm a busy lady.
How can we help you today?
I just had a quick question. Two of them for one. I have a friend, that my church friend. We go to Calvary, and I love Pastor Brodersen. I get fed by him, and just his teaching is great. However, he just lost his wife to MS, and for 30 years he called me. He goes, "Can I call you?" And I say, "Yeah." He just wants to know. He wanted to know. He was very angry. For 30 years, he was been married with her, and he was like, and a question I couldn't answer. And he's like, "When do miracles begin? When Jesus was here, he's pulling miracles. He brought Lazarus from the dead and stuff like that." He goes, "Why don't they happen to me?" He goes, "I prayed for so many years, and I didn't see not one miracle." And he was very, very hurt. My second question is we just lost my two family members. We've been losing our family members to COVID. And one family, my cousin lost, my aunt, my mom's sister, lost her son and daughter, one right after the other.
Wow.
Lost her husband to cancer, lost her son and daughter, and and now she's down to two kids. My cousin, the Becky, I say her name, but she's a grandmother, and her granddaughter leukemia came back, and now she has brain met, nodules actually, and and my question is like, when they say God only gives you no more than what you can handle. What does that really mean? You know what I mean? Because we've been losing our family members like left and right. I'm sorry, but I'm very angry.
Yeah. You're losing your family members left and right, and you're thinking, I can't bear this. How is it that God supposedly doesn't give us more than we can bear? Brian, what do you tell Monica?
Right. How can that family bear any more grief than what they've gone through? So like, when does it stop? Or what does that mean?
Yeah, Monica. Well, thank you for what you said earlier. This is Brian.
Hi.
Here's the thing, and I think this is just. I think we really need to be re-educated on this very issue as Christians, because we tend to think that because we're believers, because we're following Jesus now, everything should be fine. We should, we shouldn't get sick. We certainly shouldn't get cancer. We shouldn't die. But this is, this is not even, the Bible does not teach that. The Bible, we have examples of miracles in the New Testament, and specifically, through the life and ministry of Jesus, because Jesus came to reveal who he was to the world, and his miraculous power was a sign of who he was. So the apostles then went out to reveal to the world that Jesus was the Messiah, so they went out with miraculous power to confirm what they did as well. But miracles, miracles and healings and things like that, they are, I think the best way to understand it, they are the exception, not the rule. The rule is Christians get sick just like non-Christians. Christians die just like non-Christians die. This is life. This is the rule of life. So I think sometimes as Christians, we get in this mindset like, well, we can go to God and we can pray and he will heal us. Well, that is true sometimes, but it's more than likely that the same things is going to happen to us that happened to everybody else. God could intervene. He might intervene, but we are going to die and we're going to go be with him. So that's the positive side of everything. And we tend to look at dying still, even as Christians, we tend to look at it negatively. But dying is bringing us into the place of fullness and healing and God's presence. And, the psalmist tells us that in God's presence is fullness of joy, and at his right hand is pleasure forevermore. So the people who die, actually, we should know this, but sometimes we just don't think it, they're way better off than we are. When we who stay behind, they're good. It's over. They're healed. They're restored. They're never going to get sick again. So I think we just need to rethink this stuff and recognize. Now, part of it, I think, is just the time that we live in, the age that we live in, and I think it's the culture we live in. Because for many, many people, life is still very, very hard in different places of the world. When they think of dying, they're sort of like, I can't wait. I can't wait to go be with the Lord, because life here is very, very hard. Life in America is relatively easy in comparison. So we think, I got to leave all of this behind. So I think we just need to re-educate ourselves on that. There's a passage in 1 Corinthians 10, it's verse 13, and there Paul tells us that we all are tried, we all are tempted, but there's no trial or temptation that's not common to everyone. So everybody experiences these things. And that's where he says, but God is faithful, and he will not allow us to be tested beyond what we are able, and he will, in the end, bring a way of deliverance from that. So we do have to recognize that he's not going to let us be tested beyond our ability to, survive it. But sometimes we can make the test more difficult because we have an expectation that isn't realistic. And we have to just say, okay, God, he might heal, but there's just as strong a possibility that he won't heal. And so we just have to be prepared for that.
Yeah. Bobby, would you add anything?
Well, maybe one thing, I think that was great, Brian, that could help is, I get it, like loss is so hard, and it's a part of life for all of us, Monica. But let's think about the alternative, okay? If we don't figure out how to embrace loss, if we got what we really wanted, then okay, so our loved ones come back. And then what are we going to do? Just live here on this earth forever? So we've got to have a way to ultimately let go of this earth so that we could go to heaven. So for everybody out there hurting, as much as we feel pain losing loved ones, we have to think about, okay, what do we really want? Like we're not ready to let go yet, because letting go is so hard to do. But if we could have it our way and we would never let go, then this would be all we get right here on earth with all the pains and the problems. So wouldn't we rather learn how to let go and surrender so that we can go be in heaven together someday? Mm-hmm. And another thing I would just say, as it relates to pain, we're talking about relational loss, but there's other pain that depresses the human spirit beyond imagination at times. And I think that if you're out there and you're in a place where you feel depressed and you feel hopeless, how do you get out of that space? You have to not allow yourself to think that there is no option. You might feel trapped and like, oh my goodness, I've I've had an affair, and the only thing I can do is just to take my life, or I'm just hooked on drugs and alcohol, and the only thing I do is take my life, or I've made a horrific financial decision. The only thing I can do is just take my life. Don't ever allow yourself to feel like you are utterly and completely trapped. What's the worst thing that can happen? And you just gotta just start learning to accept this stuff. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, and to know that He can see us through no matter what it is. He's bigger than our sin. He's bigger than our pain. He's bigger than our hurt, and He can lead us through. And it's tough to believe that sometimes. It's really, really tough. And so I put that out there to try to encourage you.
So let's go back to Monica for a second. Monica, did any of that help you at all?
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand it. You know, I get it. I'm doing my studying and stuff. You know, and then I just like, no, I mean, I totally get it. You know.
Yeah, and look, everything you're just describing, this is overwhelming stuff. So it's understandable that.
A little bit overwhelming, you know.
Yeah.
I was just kind of confused about, you know, like what that really meant.
Yeah.
And you know, you clarify that very well. And you know, with me working in both places in the medical field, I just like, you know, you see a lot.
Sure.
And,
yeah. Absolutely.
And it gets really. Sometimes
it gets to you.
Swallow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, you know, and then when it happens to your family, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, right.
You're like lost for words.
Yeah.
You don't even know what to say. And that also too, that happens with my friend from church, you know, we go to Calvary, right. And, you know, I just felt his pain, but I was just so lost for words, you know,
yeah.
And I'm so glad that you clarified that, you know.
Yeah, it's hard. I had a lady in our church, you know, a couple of years ago, her husband passed away. And she just couldn't understand and she said, you know, I prayed for him so many times. And we asked God to heal him so many times. And I just don't understand why God didn't heal him. It was really, really difficult for her. And I mean, it's understandable. I'm not, you know, faulting her for it, but it's just, you know, it's still a challenge for us. So this is where we just have to press into the Lord.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Monica, thanks for your phone call today on Pastor's Perspective. Brian Perez here with Brian Brodersen and Bobby Conway. Next, we're going to go to Jurupa Valley and speak with Evangelina. Welcome to the program.
Hello. Hello.
Hi. What's going on?
Exodus 10:24. I wanted to know why God wanted to kill Moses.
Yes, Exodus 4:24. It does say that God wanted to kill Moses. What does it mean, Bobby?
Well, this is one of these tough passages, right? I mean, what's going on is Moses failed to circumcise his sons. And according to Genesis 17, he was supposed to, follow the Abrahamic covenant of circumcision. And the failure to do so would be to operate outside of God's provisional ways. And so this was taken very seriously by the Lord. But fortunately, Zipporah, his wife, took a flint knife and cut off her son's foreskins and then threw it at the feet of Moses. She basically allowed Moses' life to be spared because she did the right thing in that moment. So that's what was happening. It was very important that we were to follow the Abrahamic covenant, that we were to follow the Lord in circumcision. And for some reason, Moses chose not to do that, and it got God very upset.
What do you think, Evangelina?
Okay. What about the term bridegroom?
What about it?
So when she said that, what did it exactly mean?
Okay. Oh, in verse 26, at that time she said, bridegroom of blood, referring to circumcision. What is that about, Brian?
Well, she's angry that, you know, she obviously didn't share. We're reading into this because we don't know exactly, but it could be that she just didn't believe in circumcision, and Moses was going with his wife's preference rather than God's command. And so when she does this, finally, she does it angrily because she doesn't believe it. So she refers to him as a bridegroom of blood. In other words, she's just like, she's kind of just like cussing at him, like, she's mad that. So it's just an expression of her anger and her frustration.
All right. Thanks for your phone call today on Pastor's Perspective. We're going to go to Melissa now. Mm-hmm. Melissa in California, you're on with Brian Brodersen and Bobby Conway on Pastor's Perspective. Hello.
Hi, pastors. How are you guys?
Good,
great.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking my call today. I wanted to quickly give a shout out to the children that called in. I think that that's so awesome that the Lord is planting that seed in them. And at such a young age, they are intrigued and want to know more. So that's awesome, and I encourage them to continue to do that.
Yep. Good words.
Okay, so thank you. So my question comes, it's coming from pretty much, I have a teenage sister, and she's having a hard time understanding that there is a God. She is looking more so at the science aspect of it. I think some planting of evolution theory and Darwinism kind of got to her. And even though I'm trying to give her these references biblically, it's still not enough for her. Like, she wants a scientific view of it. And even though I kind of, pointed to creation, so I wanted to know, is there a better resource that I can look into with her that kind of goes more in depth? So she can have a better understanding that there is a God and we do not come from monkeys or things of that nature.
Does your sister have any kind of Christian background? Does she claim to be a Christian or anything like that?
Well, we were brought up, my family has always been a Christian. We've never known anything else. So pretty much that's where we come from. However, her father's side, it's a different story. Some of them are Catholics, and then I think, her half-brother, he doesn't believe in God at all. So I think that that's where that planting of the seed came from. I'm not really sure. It could just be her own questions, that have popped into her head to want to know more. But, as much as I try to reassure her in that aspect, it's kind of like, I hate to say it, but I'm dealing with a hardened heart a bit.
Yeah.
Or not a hardened heart, but I'm dealing with just kind of like not afraid, I wouldn't say, just wanting to know like the truth in a scientific manner.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Now, Melissa, is she open? Like, if you gave her something to read, would she read it?
You know what? I think it's 50-50. I think at this point she kind of just wants to know. So I'm trying to engage with her, and, at the same time that I'm trying to teach her, it's like kind of like a learning process. So, I'm trying to reassure her, and I'm trying to let her know that there is a God, and I'm willing to do these things with her, but I think it's a little bit of a fear, I should say.
How old is she?
So she is 15, going to be 16.
15, going to be 16. Okay.
Yes.
There's a really good little book. If she would read it, I think it would really help her. And the book is called Can Science Explain Everything?
Okay.
And it's written by an Oxford mathematician named John Lennox.
Okay.
So he's very prominent scientific mind, has several PhDs, and Oxford University, one of the most prestigious universities in the world.
Yes,
And
definitely.
it's a relatively small book, but it's really good. And I mean, even if you could read it together, that would be helpful.
Yeah, another
Yes,
thing that I would
think
say
it
that
would be helpful also.
another thing that I might mention is part of what can be helpful about apologetics is you can understand different approaches to take as it relates to people and their questions. And so there are some Christians, for example, that they would feel like, oh, I've got to convince this person of young earth creationism. Mm-hmm. Now, if I was talking to somebody that believed in evolution, I would want to be able to say, now I'm not a theistic evolutionist, but there are Christians that are, and I would want this person to know that, there is actually some Christians that would also believe that God created the universe and then he allowed for the process of evolution to take place. I would invite you to think about that and look at some of that and see some of those arguments. And what's happening there is, some people would not even give that as an option. But for somebody that's very scientifically inclined, and if they are so adamant, like it can only be this way, well, then maybe read The Language of God by Francis Collins, who's a theistic evolutionist, and see if you resonate. Like I'm saying, I don't fall in there, but I'm saying it's an option for some people to consider. And so instead of just trying to get somebody to take your view of the age of the earth, maybe you can be aware of, well, here's another option. So would I rather have somebody that's a believer in the sense of a Francis Collins than to not believe at all because they think that there's not that option? So that's one approach or one way of thinking about something like this. Like in The Reason for God, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Timothy Keller is more leaning toward theistic evolution in his viewpoint, if I remember correctly, in the book. So that might be a good book to read, The Reason for God by Keller.
I think for a 15-year-old, it's a little too heady.
A little bit too thick?
I think so, yeah. Can Science Explain Everything I think it's written on a really good level.
Yeah.
And there's one other small book by Lennox that's excellent as well. It's called God and Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking was a very famous evolutionary scientist died a few years ago. But both of those, they're relatively small books too, which is nice because, you don't want to get into some gigantic tome that you're taking a 15-year-old through. But both of them, I think, can be tremendously helpful.
All right, those books again are called God and Stephen Hawking, Whose Design Is It Anyway? And the other one is Can Science Explain Everything? Both of those written by Dr. John Lennox. And the other books we talked about, The Language of God by Francis Collins, and The Reason for God, Belief in an Age of Skepticism by Timothy Keller. Now, Francis Collins, that's the same one that we see Dr. Fauci's friend or boss or whatever, right?
Dr. Fauci's boss, yeah.
Yeah. So, Melissa, what do you think?
I think I kind of got lost in the whole Francis Keller one. Just because, honestly, for me, there's just one God, and even if there is, a believer who thinks that, evolution did take place, I kind of just feel like that's false doctrine, to be honest. But I'm definitely.
Yeah, well, I'm
definitely open.
The books I recommended to you are not going to even talk about that. So, the John Lennox books would be the ones that you would want to go with.
And again, those are Can Science Explain Everything? And God and Stephen Hawking, Whose Design Is It Anyway? So check those out. Available wherever fine books are sold. Melissa, thanks for your phone call today on the Pastor's Perspective program. And I think we're running out of time on the program. So really quick, want to mention that Easter is coming before you know it. It's going to be April 4th this year. Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa in Southern California invites you to services on, at 6 in the morning. That's when we're doing the sunrise.
6 in the morning, and our regular 2 services, 8:30 and 11. We just decided to make a change and do our normal Sunday morning services with the addition of the 6 a.m. sunrise service on Easter Sunday, yes.
Awesome. So get all the details at cccm.com, and you can find out more about Dr. Bobby Conway on his website, 1minuteapologist.com. Until tomorrow, when we want you guys to call us with your questions, thank you so much for listening to the Pastor's Perspective program. The phone number to call tomorrow, 888-564-6173. We open up the lines about 7 minutes before the program begins at 3 p.m. Pacific time. God bless you guys. Good night.
Thanks for listening to Pastor's Perspective. We trust you've been blessed and had your question answered. Join us Monday through Friday and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Pastor's Perspective. The preceding was sponsored by Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, California.